I'm not marrying you until the property is in my name, too. I called off the wedding, removed her from everything, and she lost it all. When Claire said those words, calm, rehearsed, like she was ordering a sandwich instead of detonating our future, I swear the air in my condo shifted. It was a Thursday night. I had just gotten home from my shift at the municipal water plant, still wearing my reflective vest, still smelling faintly of chlorine and steel. She was sitting at my kitchen island, wine glass in hand, engagement ring catching the dim light, like it was proud of itself. She looked up and repeated it. I'm not marrying you until the property is in my name, too. No hesitation. No tremor. Just expectation. Like she was doing me a favor by giving me terms on which she'd accept becoming my wife. And the worst part? She genuinely thought I'd fold. I didn't argue. I didn't ask her to rethink it. I walked straight to my office, closed the door, and called the event coordinator for our wedding venue. Canceled the whole thing in under 4 minutes. When she asked why, I said, irreconcilable values. Then I took the $18,000 deposit Claire had insisted we spend and transferred it into a credit for a 3-week wilderness fishing retreat in Montana. When I walked back out, Claire was still sipping her wine, eyebrows raised like I'd gone to get my wallet. What was that? She asked. Our wedding, I said. It's canceled. You made your decision. I made mine. Her jaw dropped. It was the first time all evening she looked unsure of herself. I met Claire a year and a half earlier at a charity fundraiser for local shelters. She was a volunteer coordinator, organized, charming, empathetic in a way that drew people to her. She loved animals, loved helping others, loved making the world prettier and softer. I fell for her fast. We bonded over shared values, service, responsibility, building something stable. Or at least I thought we shared them. I'd worked for 14 years to buy my condo, a renovated brick unit overlooking the downtown Riverwalk. My pride and joy. My home. My security. It cost me more sacrifice than I can explain. Skip vacations, double shifts, night classes to earn certifications, living on cheap meals while friends were buying cars and taking trips. But I was proud of what I built, and she seemed proud too. At first, the trouble didn't start with Claire. It started with her mother, Linda, a woman permanently braced for war, even at the dinner table. She'd been through 2 nasty divorces and decided every man on earth was a lawsuit waiting to happen. The first night I met her, she asked what my credit score was. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not. Over the next few months, she started dropping little comments about smart women protecting themselves and love is great, but paperwork is better. Claire would roll her eyes at her, but over time, the things Linda said stopped bouncing off. They started sinking in. I didn't notice it at first. Then, little by little, questions started replacing trust. Why don't I know the balances of your accounts? Why do we have shared access to your retirement funds yet? My mom says couples who are really committed don't hide anything. I always answered calmly. Because we're not married yet, and because financial independence isn't secrecy. She'd nod, but her eyes would flicker like she was filing the response away for later analysis with her mother, the night she gave the ultimatum. She had a whole outline printed, how we could transfer the deed before the honeymoon, the timeline for adding her to my investment accounts, the legal forms required. She must have practiced that speech in the mirror. I sat there staring at her, realizing this wasn't a conversation. It was a demand, a test, an evaluation of how far she could push before I resisted. And when I did resist, immediately, decisively, she panicked. Not publicly, not dramatically, but internally, you could see the gears grinding, the illusion cracking. She was expecting consequences, much less immediate ones. She tried to backtrack. I didn't mean it like that. I just want us to be secure. My mom says, and that was the moment I realized I was done. I wasn't marrying her mother, and I wasn't handing over everything I'd built because someone else failed at choosing a healthy partner. 2 days later, the legal threats began. A certified letter arrived from a family law firm in her hometown. I knew the address. Linda's attorney from her second divorce. The letter accused me of financial manipulation, claimed Claire had established equitable interest in my property by living with me for 14 months and demanded 40% ownership of my condo plus immediate access to my retirement and investment accounts. They tried to argue that her presence increased the home's value through domestic labor and lifestyle enhancement. I nearly laughed. Enhancing the lifestyle of the home she didn't pay a dime toward? My lawyer, Tom, responded with the kind of calm legal brutality I will be forever grateful for. A full packet, deed, mortgage history, tax statements, every renovation receipt tied to my name, and then a neatly calculated invoice charging Claire $31,200 in back rent for living in a property of comparable market value. If they want to argue equitable partnership, he said, we can calculate it accurately. The silence afterward was immediate and satisfying. But the war wasn't over. Claire did what many do in the age of curated narratives. She went to social media. Suddenly, I was a controlling, emotionally abusive, financially manipulative ex who stole her wedding and left her with nothing after promising her forever. She posted black and white selfies crying, long captions about heartbreak, vague inspirational quotes about escaping toxicity. People I barely knew were messaging me essays about accountability and healing. Friends reached out asking what I had done. Her version spread fast. Mine was non-existent because I said nothing. For 48 hours, I let it burn. Then I posted. Just once. No insults. No theatrics. Just screenshots, redacted for privacy but undeniable. Her ultimatum message. The attorney letter demanding 40% of my condo. My deed dated years before I met her. The invoice her lawyer received in return. The wedding deposit conversion receipt proving I hadn't stolen anything. I simply repurposed my money for my trip. The shift in public opinion was immediate. People who had been comforting her went silent. Her friends began deleting comments. One even messaged me apologizing for assuming anything without facts. Claire locked her accounts within a day. When she came to get her belongings, her mother came with her. Linda walked in like she was entering a courtroom. She launched into a speech about exploitation, manipulation, emotional danger. Claire cried quietly behind her, packing the few things she had brought when she moved in. Mostly decorative items and 2 cats she adored but wasn't taking because she was moving in with her mother. You trapped her with financial pressure, Linda said. You isolated her from her resources. I couldn't help it. I laughed. She lived here for free. Free. And you're trying to convince me I exploited her. That shut her up for just long enough for Claire to whisper, I never meant for her to go this far. But she had. Or at least, she let her mother steer it this far. 5 days later, I boarded a small bush plane in Montana and watched the mountains crack open beneath me like the earth was exhaling. I stayed in a remote lodge where Wi-Fi was an urban myth and time moved differently. The first night, I sat by a river so clear you could see the stones at the bottom like polished bone. I learned to fly fish from a guide named Mark who'd been doing it for 30 years. Quiet man, barely spoke unless he had to. My kind of person. One morning he looked at me and said, City folks always come here when something breaks. I didn't deny it. I didn't have to. There's something honest about wilderness. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't demand paperwork to prove your worth. You show up, you learn, you adapt, or you get humbled. I needed that more than anything. In the evenings, a few of us sat around a fire, men from different states, each carrying their own quiet heartbreaks. A divorced school counselor from Nevada, a widowed truck driver from Kansas, a firefighter recovering from burnout. No one bragged. No one judged. We told stories like people do when there's no signal, no pressure, no audience. I realized how small my entire situation had been in the grand scheme of things. Painful, yes, but also clarifying. A filter that caught the debris and left the clean water behind. After I came back home, friends told me Claire had moved in with her mother permanently. Word got around she was struggling financially and emotionally. She'd gotten used to a life she hadn't earned, one she couldn't maintain on her nonprofit coordinator salary. Credit cards piled up. She applied for loans she didn't qualify for. She'd started dating someone new, apparently. But that ended when he realized she expected to be taken care of. Her social media accounts resurfaced. Private, quiet, curated differently now. No more speeches about empowerment. No more ultimatums. As for me, I returned to my condo, peaceful, intact mind, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Pure, unfiltered relief. I fixed the loose cabinet door, fed the cat she left behind, who, I swear, didn't miss her at all. Sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights with a glass of bourbon and breathed more deeply than I had in years. I kept my job, kept my home, kept my independence, kept my sense of self. I didn't lose anything. Not really. She did. And strangely, I don't feel victorious about that. Just grateful. Grateful I didn't ignore the red flags. Grateful I didn't give in to pressure disguised as love. Grateful that I learned, early enough, that some ultimatums are gifts in disguise. Sometimes someone shows you exactly who they are, and if you're lucky, you listen. I did. And it saved me from a lifetime of walking on financial eggshells around a woman who didn't see me, only what I owned. I dodged a future where my worth was measured in assets instead of character. A future where love was conditional, transactional, negotiable. And as I sat there on my balcony, watching the last bit of sunset burn out behind the skyline, I realized something simple and freeing. Losing her wasn't a loss. It was the first good thing she'd ever done for me.